Good evening. I'm Jackie Jones, Dean of the School of Global Journalism and Communication. This year, we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of the creation of our school here at Morgan State University. This anniversary marks 10 years of our efforts to train students to be journalists and storytellers. We do this in the classroom, and we've done it beyond the classroom, in places like Greece, South Africa, France, and Cuba. During these field trips, we have exposed our students, faculty, and staff to people who have had a hand in shaping the world in which we live. This evening, we bring one of these people to the campus of Morgan State University. Tonight, the School of Global Journalism and Communication and the Center for New Media and Strategic Initiatives, led by Dwayne Wickham, the school's founding dean, bring you what we believe will be an unforgettable conversation with Nancy Morejon, a poet and essayist who has been one of Cuba's most influential voices over the past half-century. She has been described by some in this country as Cuba's Maya Angelou. She is the most widely translated woman poet of post-revolutionary Cuba. Tonight, in her soft-spoken voice, she will share with you the power of her words and ideas. To be in conversation with Nancy Morejon is to be in a place of constant learning, and she teaches us with care, grace, and intentionality. I'm overjoyed to know her, to have her here, and to call her my friend. We even share a birthday. I hope you enjoy this evening as much as I know that I will. But first, let me introduce Mireles Urbano, one of our outstanding multimedia journalism students, and a fellow in the Center for New Media and Strategic Initiatives.
Thank you so much, Dean, and welcome, everybody. I hope you guys are having an amazing evening so far. We are getting ready to start our event for the night. My name is Mireles Urbano. I am an intern here, a fellow for the Center for New Media and Strategic Communications. I am a multimedia journalism student, minoring in Latin American and Caribbean Studies. And I am also a poet, a writer, and I am going to be reciting a poem this evening called Ode to Black Women. One of our initiatives for this project was to make our Spanish-speaking community feel very welcome. That is part of our advocacy for language justice. And we wanted to make sure that everyone here in this room felt welcome as well. There is a QR code, like I mentioned, to them for them to have a translation, and I will be translating the entire event live from the back room. Quiero disculparme por adelantado si la traducción no es totalmente perfecta, porque a pesar de que el español es mi primer idioma, es en vivo, entonces existen nuestros problemas técnicos y todo eso. I wrote this poem when I was younger, so I was like last year. No, I actually wrote this poem when I was in high school. I was 17 years old. It's an ode to Black women. And it is a poem that I was asked to recite for you all and for our guest, Nancy Morejon. And I hope you guys like it. Oda a la mujer negra. Negra, bella, oscura y cócola, como el alba de un amanecer intenso impune, porque de la vida has hecho tu reino, de cual tesoro tu color y de corona esa interminable cabellera. Negra, porque así te hiciste mía y te hiciste tuya sin duda, impartiendo al más noble la duda y al más seguro la leve y cálida comprensión de tu ser. Bella, como cada trazo que compone tu persona, tanto en la amplitud de tu física imagen como en tu ente intelectual. Únicas son las curvas de tu sonrisa o las que da la vida de quien no te ve venir. irreemplazable tu cuerpo, que por tantos años herido ante la mirada perversa y el dedo opresor del que con recelo te juzga e hipócritamente añora lo que por gracia la vida te dio. Oscura como cada noche de abril en el más tenue atardecer en las costas del Congo y única como solo tú predicas y hermosa, desde los dedos de tus pies hasta el último rizo en tu cabello, negra, negra, negra y bella. Bendita negritud la tuya, que hace que resalten tus facciones muy lejanas a lo socialmente aceptable, lo moralmente coherente y lo comúnmente hablado, pero muy cerca de lo perfecto de ti. Bendita negritud la tuya, desafiando las leyes de la gravedad con tu melena y absorbiendo los rayos del sol, cual bendita tu piel, creada sutilmente por la divinidad del cielo, mujer. Thank you so much, and welcome to Morgan State University.
My job is so easy. Nancy, how are you?
Fine, I'm very excited.
Good to see you. Yeah, everyone was very anxious. And when they thought you might possibly not be coming, people were talking about a necktie party for me. They had a rope. And I told them, no, she's coming. So where do I begin? Nancy Morejon and Cassandra Wise Whitehead are kindred souls. They are both women of letters. They are writers, essayists, filmmakers, and educators. But I think the most important thing to say about them is that they are more than the sums of their parts. They are both extraordinary women. Dr. K, as we call her, she is the host of Today with Dr. K on WEAA FM radio here at Morgan State University. It's an award-winning radio station. She's a top radio talk show host in the Mid-Atlantic region. That's Washington, Maryland, and Virginia. She's a top radio talk show host. Nancy Morejon is one of Cuba's national treasures. As a poet, she is the linear successor to Jose Marti and Nicolas Guillen, Cuba's greatest poets. As a social commentator, her voice is as provocative and penetrating as that of Fernando Ortiz, Cuba's most highly regarded anthropologist. This is important to know because this evening, Nancy Morejon will take us on a journey around the world as she had come to know it, a world that she has often described in her prose and her poetry. This evening you will hear from her in her own voice, here, up close and personal. It's a voice that I have come to know and to admire and respect. And so without further ado, welcome to a conversation with Nancy Morejon.
Thank you. I've really been looking forward to this conversation. I stayed up all night reading your poetry, and I was writing down lines and kind of putting them on Post-it notes throughout my house. I kept my husband and my dog awake because I wanted to read them out loud because I was so struck by the way your poem spoke to me as a Black woman, to understand what it means to be connected to Black women around the world. Can you talk a little bit as you write from your own experience, how your work connects Black women, whether they're in Cuba, in America, or on the continent? You write for all of us.
Thanks for your introduction. But before answering your question, I wanted to give thanks for this opportunity to share with you, to be here, exchanging experiences and, a lifetime writing, creative writing. And I was really impressed when I entered the room because I heard Spanish-speaking young writer, and she was reading her poem, a black woman or negra. I don't know how she wrote it, and I was really impressed because I became a witness of my dreams, my own dreams that young generations would be able to restore our history. So it's very encouraging for me to have listened to her. I don't know her name, but I would like to have the text, if possible, to make a translation and so forth. Because one of the things I do is to translate and to work in magazines and so forth. It's important. I want to say good afternoon also to Dr. Jacqueline Jones. I appreciate a lot her presence there in first row. I think what you do in this university is really encouraging, is inspiring. It's inspiring. Anyway, I would like to pray you to forgive my English. Because it's a foreign language for me. It is not my mother tongue. My mother tongue is Spanish. So that's why I entered with very, very, in very good mood, in very good shape, listening to my mother tongue. So you requested about my creative writing.
Well, I was wondering, and actually I'm going to change the question now, based upon what you just said about being the witness of your own dream. Because I went back and I found an article with you from 2002.
Oh,
And they asked you, yes, 2000. They said, where do you see yourself as an artist 10 years from now? And you started by saying, well, I see myself alive, which I think is important. But you also said that you wanted to see your projects come to fruition over that 10-year period.
Like it happened.
Like it happened, right. So
now.
Now we're talking 2024, looking back. In addition to being a witness of your own dreams,
Yes.
what other projects that you kind of nurtured that you've seen come forward, and where do you take them from here?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I have to say that in 2001, I was awarded with the National Award of Literature. So there is almost 25 years. This 25 years of being awarded with the National Award in Cuba. The first writer who received it was Nicolas Guillen in 1983. And then many others that I cannot recall exactly now. It's really important. And I would like to remember, to answer your question, some images of my speech at that time when I received it in a public ceremony in Old Havana in February 2002. I felt a very special pride because I do believe my creative writing is a voice that allowed my grandmothers, whom I never saw, whom I never knew. Those grandmothers are in my voice. So I give her the voice to talk about society, neighborhood feelings, our sense of community in poor boroughs of Havana, where I really was born and raised and studied. So the relationship of a writer with her mother is always very important. In these cases, I love to remember a quotation by Virginia Woolf, a wonderful writer in 20th century, and she used to say in that quotation that in every female writer there is the ghost of a mother.
I found this article where you were asked about 1959. And you said that 1959, you witnessed a world that was coming to an end and another one that was beginning.
Yeah.
And that helped shape you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I would like. Yes, very much. Because I was a good pupil, as I was telling you, although I did have failures, for instance, to learn French, that I did have to follow at the, let's say, my senior high school. But my father was very, very sad and concerned because he did not have the money to pay my entrance at the university. And presuming that historical fact, I have to tell, and I will never forget the fact that education became free at all levels. So I was involved in the literacy campaigns and so forth, but next year I was able to enter at the University of Havana for a French license, totally free. Now we talk about that, it seems very natural, but it was not. Because my fathers were always, how can I say, they were they were scared that I was not able, because of their economy, their poor economy, to get into university. So everything I've done in terms of as a professional of letters, as a critic, as a translator, it's a result of a great development of culture. But education and culture are for us birds of a feather, and they fly together. And in our country, they are free. I love to remember Ernest Hemingway's perception of inspiration. He used to say, he lived in Havana many years. He was someone, a common person. And he used to say, I write every day. I trust in inspiration. But my desire is that inspiration comes while I am working. That is very interesting. So you have to work, and you have to think of poetry as a job, as something you do working. You take a paper, whatever you have, you write what you need to express, and then you put it in a drawer. And you leave there that paper 24 hours, 72, 1 week, take back your paper, and then you rewrite.
You have been described, your work has been described as love letters to Black women. This idea that it's teaching us how to love ourselves. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, it is. It is very, let me tell you, I wouldn't dare to get into that, the answer of that question without remembering and mentioning my friend Alice Walker. Because at the very beginning of my lifetime as a writer in this country, she wrote a wonderful blurb to my very first anthology, bilingual anthology, Spanish, English. And we met recently, and we made an interview. We had lots of fun. It's not a sin to have fun. And we had lots of fun. And she remembered the day we met for the first time, and how I went to read my poems of that future book, Where the Island Sleeps Like a Wind, by the Black Scholar Press. And she understood my message. She understood what my poems were praising. And in that blurb that I will never forget, and I always appreciate that verb, she said, her words were so simple and so deep when she said that I was a poet in peace with my country. And that is so important. It was so important for me to know that a good poet, a good writer, a very successful writer at the time, because it was the times of the publication of The Color Purple, and even the beginning of the turning, the Spielberg. I did not know who Spielberg was. I'm not ashamed to tell her at all. You may think she's not ashamed to say that she did not know Spielberg. I did not in 1985. I did not know.
The other thread I want to follow is something you said. You said I don't write and said I'm going to write about one topic except for George Floyd.
Yes.
So I want to have you kind of follow that thread.
So when I heard the news, the crime, the killing of George Floyd, it was like an upheaval in my self-being. I felt hurt, with nothing to do except write poems. And those are the poems that I would like to read. Blues para George Floyd. De tu garganta saltan ríos, inundando el fragor de la mañana. Ríos desolados bajo una luna triste, cuya luz se derrama sobre tu cuerpo, denunciando sin tregua al asesino como uniforme policial. Vamos alzándote despiertos con un remo en el alma, con la garganta tuya triturada, yerto ya desplomado sobre ese alquitrán negro. Acompañados por tus ríos, te cargamos en andas, bajo los rascacielos, con tu cuerpo cantando un blues, mientras estás hablándole a los ríos, fieles así a tu vieja estirpe, forjada al pie de las pirámides. Vamos alzando tu cuerpo ya invencible, hecho de bronce y nafta y aire frío. Vamos cantando un blues cantado por madres y sus hijos, un blues cantado por hijas y sus padres, por niños y por niñas con sus abuelas, en silencio, siempre amparándonos. Un blues alado por cientos de primos a lo lejos, sujetos para siempre al aire trágico del verano que asoma. Y corre entre tus ríos una lluvia de sangre derramada, renaciendo en la nuestra sobre el asfalto negro que reclama justicia. I would like to pray if you could read the English translation.
I would love to. Okay, I'm living all my dreams right now, folks. So I'll let you know. Blues for George Floyd. Rivers spring from your throat, flooding the morning clamor. Dreary rivers under a blue moon, whose light scatters over your body, restless. Denouncing the murderer in a police uniform, we are lifting you awake. With a roar in the soul, with your crushed throat already stiff, collapsed on top of that black tar. Escorted by your rivers, carrying you on our shoulders under the skyscrapers, with your body singing blues while you speak to the rivers. Loyal to your heritage, forged at the base of the pyramids, we are lifting your body, by now invincible. Made of bronze and gas and cold air, we are singing blues. Blues sung by mothers and their sons. Blues sung by daughters and their fathers, by boys and by girls, with their grandmothers in silence, always guarding us. Blues drawn by hundreds of cousins in the distance, wherever subject to the dreadful air of the coming summer, and amidst your rivers flows a shower of spilled blood that is reborn in ours over the black asphalt that claims justice like a nest. The body of George Floyd is a riverbed. Poetry is his nest, birds his master. The body of George Floyd is the riverbed. His soul is the water that flows in its fragrance towards the woods, towards the blue sea, towards all rivers. The body of George Floyd is this river.
Thank you so much. Bravo. Wonderful reading.
Alice Walker, who's also one of my favorite writers, when she wrote that blurb for you, she talked about how you were a poet at peace with your country, which is something I'm trying to get to. I want to be at peace with America. But you mentioned George Floyd, Emmett Till. Thinking about how to be at peace. Can you talk a little bit as we look at race revolution and the African diaspora about the ways that Cuba, being Cuban, how it has shaped your writing and how you see the world?
Well, I think that you cannot explain my writing, my creative writing in all its senses without Cuba. I think that my homeland inspires me, although I may have a critical perspective of many things, because I do have the right of it. But I have always stated that as I wrote books on Nicolas Guillen, I am always saying that without Nicolas Guillen's poems on Black issues and race, my poems wouldn't have existed. The only difference is that there is my contribution of gender. I am a woman, and I see that environment, our history, everything, through the eyes of myself, of my grandmother.
Now, that goes back to something you said in 2010. They asked you where you saw yourself in 10 years. The second part of the question is where you saw Cuba in 10 years. And then you said art has to be what saves and heals Cuba.
Yeah.
So now it's 22 years later, and it sounds like what you're saying, the artists have stepped into that space, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Cuba resists. That's the most important thing. I'm part of the Cuban people, and I do believe we're living very hard times for political reasons
Right.
that I'm not going to describe in front of you. But my point of view is to defend my people, defend my homeland, and to resist and to try to overcome the punishment, the economical tragedy that some powers have put over ourselves. And that is something that we should know, we should study, and we should fight against. What we think is that we have friends all over the world. We have friends here, there, even in the heart of the American people. We have always made the difference between the American administrations and American people. Who make the difference.
Right.
So we have published Alice Walker and James Baldwin and, all the things we have to do. And we appreciate a lot the intelligentsia in this country, the avant-garde of thinking in this country. So we don't care about resistance, we care about resistance. We do resist, but we don't hate American culture. We don't hate American people, not at all.
People often ask why the School of Global Journalism and Communication makes so many reporting trips to Cuba. I think our conversation tonight with Nancy Morejon gives you at least one answer to that question. She is an important link between the widely dispersed people of the African diaspora, a link that I hope has brought us greater understanding of Black life in the American hemisphere. Thank you for coming, and good night.